Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 703, written by Pickleportal. When you meet a stranger that you've known forever. When I was 19, I worked at Walmart in a festival town. I was a cart pusher, and in the summer the store would get overrun with festival goers. On this week, many years ago, there was a hippie music festival going on. The venue was very large, and the population of this small Midwestern town would swell by several thousand people. I remember I was walking away from the store to gather shopping carts, donned in my blue vest of honor, and there were 2 or 3 young women about my age walking towards the store to enter. They were obviously festival goers and all donned out in their hippie-esque regalia. I saw this blonde girl about 20 feet away, and something about her just struck me with a massively intense feeling of familiarity. We began to walk slowly past one another, and we locked eyes and could not stop looking at one another. Then she stopped, pulled away from her friends, walked up to me and said, "I know you. Where do I know you?" I told her I was experiencing the exact same feeling. We stood there for 20 minutes or so while her friends became very impatient and tried to recall past towns we have both lived in, or people we might have both mutually known. But nothing in our histories lined up. Like, not whatsoever in the least. She was from a different state entirely. There was no crossover whatsoever. Eventually we gave up and went our separate ways. I was a far less confident and socially awkward man then. I should have gotten her Facebook or number, but I did not. I'm 34 now, and I still think about her all the time and wonder very deeply about who the hell she was or how we could help feel so strongly about one another with no apparent connection. I really wish I remembered her name, I really do. But to be fair, it has been 15 years. Who knows, maybe she'll scroll by one day and drop a post or DM that I can corroborate. On that day, I'll give her a number and give her a ring to find out for myself. Thanks guys, and remember to follow through with your own bizarre connections. You never know where they'll lead. Creepy file number 39, written by Anonymous. The evil is all within those dead dark eyes. I, 27 female, went backpacking alone over the recent long weekend, which was 10 on 10 beautiful. The second night I camped at a beautiful high-elevation lake, which could also be accessed by a short 1-mile trail, so there were a few other campers and several people who were just day hiking or fishing. It was late afternoon and I was sitting around my camp reading when a guy, mid-20s, walked by carrying a fishing pole and a small cooler. Didn't think much of it, but 5 to 10 minutes later he doubled back and came and said hi. I said hi in return and went back to reading. But then, without warning, he sat down on a stump next to me. I was completely taken aback by this invasion of my space. He started asking me questions that were really just statements, but in a creepy, amused tone, like, "So you're just reading?" And then looked behind me and noticed my tent and said, "Oh, you're staying the night here alone, huh?" I didn't say anything in response to this in particular, but it's obvious that I am. It's hard to explain, but his vibe was just really off. I was so uncomfortable that I couldn't even really form words or tell him I was trying to be alone to get him to leave. I was honestly paralyzed. Really, it's his eyes. They were so dead and dark and just drilling into me. I just responded with things like, "Uh-huh," or "Yep," or something, and just tried to pretend I was still reading. Without warning, he pulls out and cracks a beer and lights a cigarette and just starts blowing it at me. At this point, I'm so uncomfortable and just not responding. Soon, another hiker wandered by and struck up a conversation with him, and I took the opportunity to grab my water filter and bladder and pretend to need to get water. I went to the shore and filtered some water super slowly and saw him walk away to go sit with the new guy, which made me super relieved, except that he kept looking in my direction. I came back eventually and got inside my tent, and for 20 minutes, everything was fine. I had the rain fly pulled back and was watching a sunset and loosely organizing my things when he popped out from behind my tent and stood maybe 1 foot from my door looking down at me. He didn't say anything, but just started laughing really creepily and fakely again. I asked, What? And his response was, "This is really just funny." I felt literally sick to my stomach and finally responded with something like, "I'm taking a nap now, so have a good night." He laughed again but luckily left. Later, I saw him still wandering around the camp with no real purpose, still looking in my direction often. I had no service, but I wrote down his last name, at least what was written on his cooler, and where he said he was from while talking to the other hiker in my notes app, just in case, and slept with my pocket knife close by. I debated leaving camp that night, but ended up staying and just leaving super early in the morning in case he came back. Normally while backpacking, I think the worst thing that could happen is I might run into a bear or sprain an ankle, and maybe this seems not as bad as you're listening to it. But this truly was the most unsettling experience I've ever had in backcountry. I'm sure I'll be back out soon, but hopefully somewhere far away from this dude. Bonus file, written by Small Friend 99. His pure love and energy saved my life. I had a fight with my boyfriend last night, our first time apart in 6 months, and decided to go for a walk to the headland near my house. I know I left at 12 a.m. I was having a cry and watching the ocean, and started entertaining certain thoughts. I've struggled with idealization since puberty. I was standing on the edge of a cliff when I felt someone watching me. It's a really quiet night and would have heard someone walking down the gravel track to where I was, but a boy I went to school with was standing a few meters back from me. I was overcome with relief and gratitude at not being alone in that moment. I kind of threw myself at his feet and sobbed uncontrollably. He sat there with me and I could feel his understanding. He had a really hard life, but what shocked me was the love. This beautiful warmth would flood my chest despite the horrible thoughts in my head, until I focused on the feeling and my mind quieted down. He never said a word, but it was like I could feel his voice telling me he knows. It's okay, and it will all be okay. He never touched me. It was like he was reassuring me with just his energy. I finally stopped crying and began to thank him for being there, for being so kind and understanding. But when I looked up, there was no trace of him. The sand beside me was completely untouched. I knew it was weird, but I was cold and tired and could only think of going to bed. I picked myself up and began to walk home. I checked my phone and the time said 3:33. There's no way I could have been there for more than an hour. It's freezing. I went to send him a message on Facebook to thank him, and then I remembered he had just jumped from that exact cliff 3 years before. I feel like I should be scared, but I'm honestly just so grateful he was there. He is such a beautiful person, and we had such good times together. I know he felt a lot of pain in his life, and I'm honored that he helped me, stopping me doing something silly and making me feel so seen and loved. It really makes me think about guardian angels. I think I'll take him some flowers tomorrow. Case notes for the bonus file. A love so pure it saved my life. So yeah, the first sign that this was something supernatural was actually from the lack of sound that this boy made. I've been on gravel roads before, and let me tell you, they make so much noise that even a master ninja assassin is gonna create a ruckus. So yeah, that this boy approached you with no sound at all, that was the first sign. Indeed, it was a manifestation of some sort of energy. He also mentioned that the boy had a hard life, which I think speaks a lot of volume towards the choices we make, having such a wild impact on who we become. Some people, when they're faced with a hard life, they grow angry, which in a way is understandable. I mean, if you're wronged in so many ways that are out of your control, it's just bad luck. You kind of just want to blame the world for it because they're kind of to blame. Of course, then if you start taking your anger out on other people who are innocent, who never wronged you, well, that's wrong. But then other people, when their lives are difficult, they might still be somewhat angry or frustrated, but their empathy level also grows because they understand the plight of others, their pain. And from that pain, their empathy shoots up and then they understand, okay, this is what it feels like. It's sort of like a rich boy who always had money and doesn't understand the plight of those who don't. What it's like, it's inconceivable to them because they never experienced it. They might be able to imagine it, but they don't feel it. They don't truly know what it's like. So then you have this echo of a boy whose life was challenging. I don't know the specifics, but I imagine pretty intensely by how you mention it. So then here we are. You had a fight with your boyfriend. You were in a very dark place. It's almost like that was a beacon to this boy, this echo. The manifestation of someone who was truly, purely good and wanted to help. Your pain was a call to him. And it's fascinating that just his energy, just being there, was enough to help you. It actually reminds me of an episode, minor spoilers, of Supernatural, where Castiel, the angel, saps away the pain and the despair that Sam was suffering in because of his experiences and memories from the cage, being tortured for years by Satan himself. Obviously that's going to be hard to deal with, and Castiel takes that pain away and locks it up inside of himself. A truly awesome scene, I think. I think something similar happens here, where this echo is able to siphon away that negative energy in your mind, rearranging synapses, but that energy I think is real and has to go somewhere, because you can't destroy energy, only transfer it or transform it. This boy took it from you and locked it away inside of himself to save you. It's beautiful.